Hello and welcome to another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show. I'm so happy to have as my guest for today's show the Mayor of Taylor, good friend of mine, good friend of Dearborn Heights, Rick Sollars. So Mayor, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it, and always love coming to the other side of Van Born and visiting our neighbor of Dearborn Heights.
Yeah, and you are part Dearborn Heights in many ways. Didn't your wife grow up here and she worked for the city, and you've got a lot of roots in Dearborn Heights?
Yeah, absolutely. She worked for the court, and of course we became friends with many of the employees at the court and the police department, and Chief Gavin is a personal friend still that I talk to regularly, and many of the officers, unfortunately, a lot of them are now retired or in the process of retiring, but we even joked a lot of them were in our wedding. So they're at one point I knew more people in Dearborn Heights than I did in Taylor.
Well, it's a good thing you didn't run for mayor of Dearborn Heights, but we have a good relationship, and we run into one another periodically. I think I've dined with you and your family more than once at Panera. So
absolutely,
we had some of the good places, and you have a terrifically nice family. So
thank you.
That's really good. And we're so happy. You've done a lot for the city of Taylor. You look back at the 2008, and then you became the mayor, and you have really made some significant changes and significant improvements in the community.
Yeah, as you recall, Mayor, the one thing that we really struggled with was public safety. When I took office in late 2013, our police department was down to a skeleton crew. Our fire department was almost non-existent, and of course we relied heavily on partnerships with whether it be outside agencies or other communities via mutual aid, and we had to spend a lot of time rebuilding those relationships, and of course we appreciate Dearborn Heights and the partnership that you guys have always afforded us. But we probably were just relying too much on other people. So today we've come a long way in 3.5 years. We're proud to say that beginning in September, not only do we have all of our firefighters back in business and working, but we're going to be starting our ALS transporting again. We've purchased 2 new ambulances and refurbished a third. We just were awarded an AFG grant, so we have a new fire truck coming, which will mean all of our stations will now have new equipment at each one of them. 3 new fire trucks, 2 new ambulances, and we also went the way of a couple of Tahoes. So we have a couple of emergency vehicles that are new Tahoes, and so yeah, we really have focused on public safety. You know the importance of that into the community, and you have obviously been very committed to both police and fire and the public safety of Dearborn Heights. And we took a lot of notes. I don't know if you recall, but when I first took office, we met with you and your fire chief and said, hey, we don't really know what we're going to do. What can Dearborn Heights continue to help with while we sort this out? And you guys were very gracious and great partners, and we can't say thank you enough.
Oh, you're a good neighbor. And I found I've added additional rescue squad because the demand is so great, and it's constantly, year over year, there's an extra 500 to 1,200 runs that we actually put additional unit in service, and they're still pretty busy. So, but what you're doing is great, and it's great to have strong neighbors, and we share such a long boundary together. And which brings up another topic, and that's the fact that you and I have talked a few times that we need to do and concentrate on economic development along Van Born.
Sure. We have a really great partner coming in to replace Masco, and that's Ford Motor Company. Anytime you lose somebody like Masco in your community, who, by the way, is our single largest taxpayer in the city of Taylor. So we were on eggshells for a while. For 2 years, we really didn't know what direction they were going to go in with that building. The commitment Masco had always made to us was that they wouldn't leave it empty. They would do their best to either fill it. I mean, there was talks from demolishing it and turning it into a park which, by the way, wouldn't have been great because you lose all the tax revenue.
Tax base, yeah.
But they really, I feel they came up with a best case scenario for the city of Taylor and, of course, the city of Dearborn Heights. And now you and I have an opportunity to really reshape that Van Born Road corridor. I think that the Ford Motor Company coming to the city will drive a lot of economic opportunities. And but the corridor admittedly is tired. It needs some work. It needs a facelift, and I think that the direction we're going, we're definitely going to help deliver that.
Mm-hmm. And we went over, both yourself and myself, over to Wade and Trim, and I think Taylor's already agreed on the agreement. We'll be presenting it to our city council later this month, but to have the consultants assist us. And the one thing we both agreed on real quickly, that if a new business comes into Taylor or comes into Dearborn Heights, whatever helps that corridor is beneficial for both of us. So you're not going to get us warring over a business. Let's bring them in and get that synergy going, and that might feed additional items. One question my residents ask me relates to the former Kmart store. Is there plans for that at this point?
Yes, there are. There actually, I spoke to our planning director this afternoon, and Ford Motor Company will likely be doing some type of public unveiling in the very near future. What they would like to do initially is kind of create a concept with the landscape design that makes it look like it's all one site. And it's our understanding that ultimately they would like to move in part of their Ford Smart Mobility program, which is the autonomous vehicle. Yep. And we don't know exactly what that means. We don't know if that means that's going to be part of an R&D facility. We think that is the direction that they'll ultimately heading towards. But that will happen in the very near future. I would expect within a week or two we'll actually find out when the unveiling will occur. Our planning department's been working with Ford Motor Company and the team from Walbridge and starting to get the plans underway, and just looking at how do we, there's a couple of important neighborhoods that are adjacent to that, whether they're along Clippert Street or on the other side of Van Born, that we want to make sure that it doesn't impact the residents of Taylor or Dearborn Heights in a negative way. And they've been very sensitive to that. They've been really good to work with, and in the end, there's going to be about 1,000 employees that are calling that location home, which are going to be great for you and I to actually do something with that corridor.
Oh yeah, because that now can create other opportunities for support businesses.
Absolutely.
And I have felt once I learned that Ford Motor Company was going to make that commitment for the Masco property, that the corridor in a couple of years is, if we take pictures of it now and then pictures 2 years later, I think people are really going to say, what an improvement.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. The Wade Trim study will likely take about 6 months to complete, which is good timing for us, because that's going to give us some sort of direction in the late spring, early summer, that we could start talking about improvements to the traffic signals, improvements to the streetscape. They're going to look at all the non-conforming buildings, both that are owned by the city or the county, or that's privately owned, and how do we avoid that? The one thing we did look at was that Dearborn Heights and Taylor has a fair amount of differences in their ordinance. Yes. So this will allow us to compare notes and have some synergies related to our ordinances, and really look at what we know, that Van Born Road is a major artery, and we know what it can become, but we also recognize what it has become, and neither Taylor or Dearborn Heights has had a lot of success recruiting new business in recent years there, and I think this will be a foundation for a solid 10 years to come of really good economic opportunities for both of us.
Mm-hmm. And because you have a relationship with them as a planner, they are our planners also. Getting the conformity, and that makes a lot of sense to have one set of ordinances governing Van Born, whether you are in the Dearborn Heights or the Van Born side, which also allows us to have common signage, common other type things, street signs, to make it look like a unique neighborhood commercial area.
Absolutely. We want to look at lighting, walkability. Yeah. We have a lot of great opportunities. We have the Midway entertainment facility down the street, but how could one walk from Ford Motor Company's new building to Midway, or walk across the street? So we want to look at all of those things. There's just been years of I don't want to say failure because that's not the right word. We've just had some bad luck in that corridor. Businesses, the buildings they're old and tired and they need a facelift. And this is a great opportunity for both you and I and the city of Dearborn Heights and the city of Taylor to really join forces and hopefully, I got my fingers crossed that Wayne County is going to join us as well. But we know that they also have their fair share of headaches right now. But they've been very willing and very excited about this opportunity. And the good part of the study is going to be that it's not just that little section. It's actually tip to tip. So it's going to go from the Pelham/Allen border all the way down to Inkster. And so we're going to look at the entire Van Born Road corridor of, how do we shape that over the next 10 years and what we can do to make it better, make it more enjoyable, make it more attracting.
I agree. And that's one of the reasons I wanted you as a guest on the show, so people can learn in Dearborn Heights what kind of cooperation and what we're looking. The vision is there, but it's not something that we're just promising. This is something that's going to actually come to fruition and is really going to be a plus. Like I said, I think 2 years out, we're all going to look back and say, wow, we really had a big success here.
Sure. We have a lot of great things happening right now in like the Eureka Road corridor. And so sometimes I take some heat or get beat up a little bit because residents will say, how come you're not doing more along the Van Born Road corridor? And I try to just talk to residents and explain to them it's not necessarily that I don't want to or that you don't want to, but the opportunity has to be there. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Yes. A company coming to our city that's going to bring 1,000 people there, and I recognize they're not new jobs, and that's okay. There's still 1,000 jobs that are coming to that Ford Motor Company facility. That's going to inspire a whole lot of, whether it's restaurants or coffee shops or even service stations. And it gives us a chance to modernize everything. They build them, they redevelop them to the latest codes and the latest standards, and it gives us some control of bringing all those nice, beautiful buildings to both the Dearborn Heights side and the Taylor side of Van Born Road. Mm-hmm. It's really an exciting time.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that you and I have spent a lot of time on, and that's the downriver treatment plant, Ecorse Creek, all of it. We share in it, and I want to publicly thank the city of Taylor. Has always been a partner, a cooperative partner. In fact, Romulus has also joined us and been very cooperative, and so I want to publicly thank you for all your efforts and help in that regard. But briefly, because I know people, they flush their toilets, water goes down a drain, you forget about it. But there is this plant down in Wyandotte that our flow, Taylor's flow, goes into it. Now it's the south end of Dearborn Heights, and the north end goes to the Detroit treatment plant. But we're working on an arrangement to have the 13 communities take over the downriver treatment plant. And I think that the way we've set this up, that we don't want it to increase rates at all, but rather we believe we can, why don't you explain a little bit how we've figured this out, that we think we can do it through cost savings?
Well, so a couple things. As you know, Wayne County has notoriously over the years just buried what I call their lost employees in this treatment facility, the budget of the treatment facility, if you will. So this gives us to really control not only the current situation, but also the future situation. And so by streamlining that, a couple of things. We're going to assume a lot of those employees. We hope to assume a lot of those employees. It'll give everybody to maintain a position within their structure. It will still very likely be an AFSCME union that's down there, although I don't think all of those details have been ironed out yet. And it'll allow us to control the future. So our analysis shows that we can run it more efficiently. we can plan better in terms of capital improvements, and we can do it in a cost-neutral manner. That was, as you know, the driving factor that we couldn't acquire this or agree to acquire this and then pass on the increases to residents. There's naturally going to be increases from year to year, both on the water and sewer side, as you know, and has been common practice. But the acquisition of this will give us, all the downriver communities, ultimate control of the wastewater future. Now, that is my understanding that we're the second largest wastewater treatment facility in the state of Michigan. So it's a significant purchase. And when we were involved in this negotiation, you and I and a couple of the others from the DUA team, we heard every number from $10 million to $200 million. And of course, we ended up settling on a number that was probably more than we actually wanted to pay, probably less than Wayne County wanted to let it go for. But ultimately, it was a win that we felt that both sides had somewhat of a victory. And again, we brought Wayne County in as more of a partner in this, as opposed to having them be adversarial in the negotiation process.
Well, early in, the county had a study done, and it showed that they had too many employees, although we learned later on that, there was a lot of people that were charged to those drains, but should not, or treatment plant, but probably didn't spend a whole lot of time there. But then when we went out for that RFP and got that national company that came in and told us how they would be able to slash costs significantly, and because they had done other treatment plants, they knew what they were talking about. That, I think, really opened all of our eyes. And we saw that, there are millions of dollars of savings, and that could go towards eventually saving us all as ratepayers. Yeah,
absolutely. And it also gives us the ability to better plan and understand the infrastructure below the ground. We've historically relied on Wayne County handling all that. So, I don't want to compare necessarily to the Macomb County sinkhole, but, when you don't have good planning and you don't understand the infrastructure, those surprises could happen. And I think that this purchase or this acquisition allows us, all the 13 downriver communities, the ability to better control that, so that we can deliver a better product to the residents of all of these communities. And there's really not a lot of risk associated with this. There's it's a $57.5 million purchase, but based on the return on investment for us and where our current rates are, and also keeping in mind what the county was ultimately considering doing, which is charging us with all of the OPEB liability, which would have we would have lost total control of the rates at that point in time, and that would have been just a disaster for all of the communities and all the residents.
Yeah, the way the system was set up was the county basically did a budget, and then they had no real incentive for cost overruns, mismanagement of any sort, because they just gave the 13 communities the bill, and based upon the amount of flow, we all had to pay for it. So, like you say, the big part also is the fact that the 13 communities control it. You and I, as a mayor, know that if we agree to do some type of capital improvement, agree to bring on more staff, we realize that has an effect on the rate, and you and I hear it when we go through those water rate hearings. So there's a huge incentive for us to making sure it's run as efficiently as possible. But I wanted to touch on that because it's something that doesn't get a lot of news, but it really is a major thing that's going on for the cities of Taylor and Dearborn Heights and the other 11.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a major thing for Wayne County. I mean, they wanted out of this, wastewater business for a long time. They don't have to worry about it anymore. And we as a group now, the authority or the consortium that's formed as a result of this will have ultimate control over it. And really, it comes down to accountability. I'm okay with being held accountable for things that we have control over.
Sure.
But we oftentimes get charged with the accountability of something we didn't have control of. And so that I think will give us the ability to better communicate with residents and, give them better forecasting. We don't think that there's going to be any increases as a result of this. Now, there will be from time to time the capital improvements that are needed and those things that, that we have no choice but to stay on. But I think we will, again, be in a much better position as a result.
I agree. Now, as we're talking, you have a major event going on in your town, don't you? The Little League Baseball?
We do, starting Saturday. I think the opening ceremonies are around 8 p.m. on Saturday night. The Junior League World Series is in town, and this is unique because Taylor has been home to the Junior League World Series for forever. They've never played another place. And even Williamsport, the 12-year-olds, they've played somewhere other than Williamsport before. So Taylor's always been home to the Junior League World Series, and we have there's 11 teams. There's 6 international teams and 5 North American teams that are coming in, and they'll compete over the course of all of next week. And next Sunday, so a week from this Sunday, will be the World Series game that will be televised on ESPN. So yeah, it's a great week.
Yes.
If you're a baseball fan or just want to come out and have a great time. On Tuesday night and on Thursday night at Heritage Park, we'll be showing movies in the park. So on Tuesday night, The Perfect Game will be shown, and then on Thursday night, the Jackie Robinson story, 42, will be shown, and it's a free movie. You don't have to be residents of the city of Taylor. You can, your Dearborn Heights residents are invited to come over and hang out and have a great time. And I failed to mention, on Saturday night, opening night, this Saturday, there will be fireworks as well. So we have a really nice fireworks show planned.
And you do annually have a great fireworks presentation in your city annually. So I've caught it more than once, and it really is. We wish we could still do the fireworks. We just have not been able to find a good, safe location.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to say our fireworks show is in jeopardy, but that is the Masco fireworks show,
yes.
And Masco has traditionally, have always funded that. So they have given us a 4-year commitment, even though they're moving to Livonia. They've committed to funding that for the next 4 years. So we'll have to look for some options in the future. The one thing that we do that we're very sensitive to is not using taxpayer dollars to pay for that. So it's all funded through corporate sponsors. And it's, at one point, I think the city officials wanted it to be the biggest show, south of Detroit. We don't share that concept. We like it just where it's at. We like it to be a small, quaint show. Although we still get a lot of people that show up. It's our neighbors. It's our friends from Dearborn Heights, our friends from Allen Park, our friends from, Woodhaven or Brownstown, and that's what we like. Downriver is a great close community, and all of the leaders, as you know, whether it's through the DUA groups or the DCC or Western Wayne, we spend a lot of time together and we share a lot of resources.
Yeah, it's a good cooperative. I enjoy very much. One of the things one of the best decisions I think I made was to suggest we join the DCC, and I think that from a grant standpoint, a cooperation with other downrivers. We're kind of an in-between. We're Western Wayne County, but we're also downriver. But we share so much mutual concerns and problems. It's the same general people.
It is.
When you go to Taylor, you go to Dearborn Heights, you go to Allen Park, it's the same kind of people. Many of them being related, cousins, brothers, and sisters.
Yeah, for sure.
So it is nice.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for being a guest on my show.
It has been my honor.
And I know that we're going to do great things together, and we'll periodically maybe have you come back and we'll talk about the Van Born Corridor and all the great things that Taylor's doing and Dearborn Heights and doing together.
Well, hopefully next segment we'll be able to give an actual update of what the vision looks like, and maybe be able to create that vision for what we expect that corridor to be converted into over the years to come. But I think it's exciting time. Keep up the great work. You're a great leader, and we enjoy the partnership.
Thank you. And you keep, and like I said, you're like one of our Dearborn Heights residents. So
well, thank you.
Even though you live in Taylor. So thank you for being a guest.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching another edition of the Mayor Dan Paletko Show.